Welcome to Leveling Up with Lindsay, the podcast where we dive into leadership, small business, and everything in between. I'm Lindsay, your host and the proud owner of White Peony Boutique, a space created to empower women, build confidence, and foster meaningful connections. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a mom, a friend, or someone just looking for a little inspiration, this is your space to feel seen, supported, and inspired. Join me as we share stories, strategies, and a little bit of life's chaos while navigating what it truly means to level up in starting a business, relationship, and personal growth. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's level up together. If you're a leader right now, there's a good chance you're standing at a crossroads, not because something went wrong, but because something grew. You built something meaningful. You pushed through a hard season, you tightened the back end, and now opportunities are starting to show up. New ideas, new directions, new possibilities. And with them comes a different kind of pressure. Do I pivot? Do I wait? Do I protect what I've built, or do I take a strategic step forward? Today's conversation is about discernment, about timing, and about knowing when to hold steady and when to move forward with intention. So before we jump in, I want to take a moment for anyone who may be joining us for the first time on this episode. I'm sitting down again with Kent Gustafson, a trusted business consultant, leadership advisor, and someone I personally turn to when I need clarity, perspective, and steady guidance behind the scenes. In our last episode, we talked about controlling what we can control during seasons of growth, pressure, and change. Today, we're building on that foundation because once leaders regain stability, the next challenge often isn't survival, it's discernment. Kent, I'm really grateful to continue this conversation with you.
I'm thrilled to be here. We could do this all day, right?
One topic after the next.
Right.
We could just have a podcast with just you and I on it and go from a leadership topic to the next business. Someday.
We'll take that show on the road.
We're
going to do it from someplace way warmer than central Minnesota.
You know, we've been friends for a long. That might be the best idea you've ever come up with.
And I was due, right?
Okay, so in our last podcast episode, we talked a lot about leadership, controlling what we can control. Here is where we're going to talk more about the pivoting, when to make the move, when you're in the messy middle, when you're in that growth season, when you've hit a plateau. Anything truly. The journey of leadership, the journey of business is a little bit different for everyone, but a little bit the same for everyone with what you've always said. Kent, why is it so important for leaders to find stability before making a strategic move?
Yeah, I think, in today's environment, right, there's so much coming at us so fast, and, information is so accessible, whether it's good information or not. I think what that has created is it has created this false sense of we've got to make decisions quickly. I don't think that the best decisions are made quickly, right? Even something that I feel like I'm pretty sure about, I want to sleep on it. And I also think it's important, right, that when you go into a situation where, okay, I'm thinking about a pivot, it has to align with your plan, right? When I come into a business and we're going to work together, the first thing we do is map out a plan. Where are you now? Where do you want to get to? And kind of what's in between here and there. And so I think I get wanting to make decisions quickly, but I would much rather see somebody be patient, really think it through, and weigh the pros and cons before just jumping all in.
I agree. I think with a little bit from what we've talked, I personally can kind of speak to this. White Peony in my business, we had a really fast growth period, and it was running on a treadmill like I had referenced before. And there were so many things at the time then. I was just running to move things forward. And I think where I'm at today, it's almost as though things have changed so dramatically in the world, and especially in my business, that it's like trying to keep up with. And so very easily, like, you could feel unsettled and wanting to just move. If you know me, good and bad, I'm a pusher. I'm a pusher. And so we pivot, I say, every 5 minutes here at our business, but that is good. The hustle can be good. And there are times when that is not good. And so tell us a little bit, how can someone tell they're actually ready to move forward rather than feeling restless, rather than feeling, because you talked about the journey of working with a business through the process of growth period, maybe a slower period with the economy. But tell us about how you work with someone through that process.
You've probably heard the old saying, change for change's sake, right? A lot of times things are humming along pretty good for a business and they get, like you said, restless. Well, I don't know that you need to think about changing. I think you should look ahead and say, where else could we go? What else could we do? Do we want to lead those trends versus following them? But we also don't want to lead the wrong trends. And, sometimes when we're doing well and we get restless, the idea is, well, we got to change. I actually think that's a really good time to go back and revisit what you're doing right now to ensure that you're doing it well. I remember many years ago, the company that I was working for had been acquired, and we're sitting in our first big management meeting with the new ownership. The new general manager said, if you're doing your business today the way you were doing it 5 years ago, you're going backwards. Yeah. And that stuck with me. I mean, that was 25 plus years ago. And I think that's true, right? You can't continue to do things exactly the way you're doing them, but that doesn't mean that you should just make changes because you haven't made change in a little while.
I think there's a contrary to that too, and one of the reasons I tick the way I do is because in my previous careers, I very much saw being complacent. One of the worst sayings is that's the way we've always done it. And it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. I can't stand it.
I hate it.
I cannot stand it. One of my biggest fears, especially in the fashion industry, is being out of touch with things. Or when I left my previous career, being out of technology touch, which is the case since then. But I'm always looking to evolve and grow. And I think it's very important. Like there's a two-sided story to this, and we'll meet in the middle where it's, you cannot sit and be the same old, or you're just not going to keep up with, unfortunately, the growth of the world. But at the same time, the restlessness in a business is a great time to just look back and look at how you can strengthen the branch, the core, the roots of your business.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect example of that, when we start working with a new client, one of the things that we talk to them about is, how do you feel about AI? Mm. Do you have an AI strategy? And if they say we don't, we probably should. That's a great place to start the conversation. If they say, we're not going to get into AI, I understand the reservations with it. I really do.
Right.
You and I have talked about this,
yes.
Right? Are we going to wake up someday and AI tells us we're not necessary anymore? But the reality is it's here. And you can ignore it. If you do that, pretty soon you're going to be ignored. And that's not any place that a business wants to be. So how can we approach the use of AI thoughtfully, strategically, constructively? And I really think that that's true anytime we're looking at change, right? We talked about this on the previous podcast. Every business owner needs to focus on why they started, why they do what they do, yes, what's important to them, what they value, and the decisions that they make need to align with that. I recall a business owner that I started working with 15 years ago, probably, still work with him. His company went from about probably 1.2 million to now they're in that 25 to $30 million range. Okay. Over the course of 15 years. Yep. He takes more money out of the business today than he did back then, but not a lot more, not significantly more. Sure. And the reason is that he had a goal of selling the business at a certain time and at a certain valuation. And he self-funded his growth completely. Right?
Love that.
Didn't, he might tell you, I probably shouldn't have done that in some cases, but that was his plan and he stuck to it. So every decision that he has made from that time forward was with that same outcome in mind. I think when you stay grounded in here's where I'm at, here's where I want to get to, here's what's important to me. I love that. I think that's got to be your compass when it comes to making decisions.
I love that. There's a big difference between pivoting with intention and pivoting out of pressure.
100%.
So how do you, Kent, when you're working with someone or speaking to a business owner that is listening right now or a leader, how do you help them recognize that you're making a move or making a decision with intention and pivoting? Obviously, honing in on their values, but is there a step-by-step process that you go through?
I grew up in an era where you made a list of the pros and the cons, and I still do that today. I hate the saying, well, that's the way we've always done it. Now, if people say that's the way we've always done it, I don't know if that's the right way or not. Maybe we should look at change. That's a different conversation, right? But to me, that, and however you want to go through that process, it doesn't matter to me, but weighing the good and the bad with each decision. And I think the signs of this are really, really clear when you understand it. you have to look at the decision that you're considering, and you have to be able to answer the question unequivocally. Does this draw us closer to our goal, or does this pull us away from where we want to get to? I listen to clients' ideas all the time. And sometimes, I mean, I've done it with you. I'm like,
Yeah.
Linz, I'm just going to listen, right?
Yes.
And let you go and
Yeah.
get out on the open road. And I think sometimes just saying those things out loud and talking them through, I think a lot of times people get to that place on their own where they realize, okay, this really doesn't get me closer to where I'm trying to go, or it does. And so in that case, it makes good sense to do it.
I think it's a little decision making. When you were talking about that example, as a business pivot, if you're leading a team on a day-to-day basis, this is exactly like, I know we both know you've got goals to meet. Same with as a business owner. And, every single day, like how you handle a customer confrontation or conversation had or a connection in the community, or if you're going to send an employee into the community to connect with other people, or however that looks, it's no different than asking yourself right then and there, does this make sense? Hopefully you look at financially, does it make sense? Ultimately, what's the outcome? There's like a mental checklist that I go through in that regard. Mm-hmm. The same for business. Absolutely.
Yeah, here's the other thing. There's the financial aspects of it, right? On paper, does it make sense? Do the dollars and cents come out? You also have to look at it. People often talk about ROI, right? Mm-hmm. Return on investment. I think that another mechanism that we need to consider is ROE. So return on effort. How much time and how much energy is this particular initiative going to cost? And do I have it to give? Right. I remember when I told my wife I was going to start this second business 3.5 years ago, she's just like, how are you going to do that when you're so busy as it is? Well, I think it's prioritization and figuring out ways to make it work. I weighed the pros and the cons of it. And to me, the cons weren't significant enough to say I shouldn't do this. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's I don't know. I've always been a very pragmatic person, so I look at things just from a very common sense lens and probably don't let emotion be involved as much as I should, because there is a balance, right? I don't want people to make decisions purely out of emotion, but I don't think it's good to just take the emotion, right? Think about one of the things that I've admired about you is just, White Peony is about being a community, right? That's one of the values that you promote to your customers and to your people, right? This is a community. Well, that's important, right? That's a value that matters. And, the things that you do to give back to the local community, the things that you do through the Indie Foundation, right? All of those things, there's some emotion tied to that.
Right.
And I think that that's a really, really good thing.
Yeah. It's funny that you say it this way, because my entire life, I grew up I don't know if I did grow up a really passionate, I grew up playing sports and I wanted to win. Competitive is where it started. A little bit of my mom mixed in with a little bit of, sprinkle everybody's whatever. And I always was a dreamer. My grandmother still to this day says, if anyone can do it, you can. And I think that's a little competitive in me too. And then you mix it all together and the passion that I bring to the table. And that is something that I've had for as long as I can remember. I remember kind of being squashed a little bit, being like, not that you're too much, but just you're too much,
Right.
Because you have people who think logically, and then you have a dreamer. And then if you're open to growth, that's where I come along. I'm like in between, because I have the passion that fuels what I believe can happen in the future. And I have the futuristic thinking, but I also have a little bit of I definitely look at facts. At the end of the day, I can take my emotions and look at facts. And I think growing into that even more than ever. So I do think there's a little bit of both when making, decision making or your journey that guides you. But I do believe that there needs to be facts, of course, but it's fueled by passion.
My late father-in-law, great man, and he was an idealist a little bit, but he also understood reality very much. And he was a business owner, and he would always say, it doesn't cost anything to dream. And so for him, sometimes just dreaming about doing this or pulling the trigger on that, it was enough. Because when he would look at the facts, like you said, he would realize, okay, it's not the decision to make, but I got to experience some of it just dreaming about it. And so I think that's important. I think there's a balance.
There's a quote out there, and I can't remember how it goes exactly, but it's something about leadership and as a business owner, it's like you have to be delusional essentially to be in a role like this. And I couldn't agree with that more. Because on the hard days with leadership, whether that's pulling the weight of people or changing the trajectory of whatever's happening, you have to be delusional.
Right.
And same with owning a business, to dream and to get through the things, I think, some days.
Yeah, I've been asked many times because I started out in 2007. And if you've been around a while, you can remember what happened 2007, 2008, 2009, right? Things just collapsed. And I've been asked, what's the secret? How did you survive that? And I was like, honestly, I was the perfect combination of stubborn and ignorant, and I just kept going, I'm not ignorant now, just so you know. I'm solid if you want to work with me. But yeah, I think, sometimes just going back to the whole, we don't know what we don't know. Yeah. Sometimes a little bit of that is a good recipe for plowing through.
I agree. Here's what I'm going to tell you. There is definitely something to be said. You know how they say God only gives you what you can handle?
Yeah.
And then you say that out loud, and then the universe tests you more. Yep. Yeah. That's exactly what happens. Yeah. But what I've noticed when there is struggle, if you open your mind to the lessons, there's always opportunity, through this. And I was joking with Kent, and and we said it before, how I was like, okay, I've learned so many lessons. Great. Let's move on. But if you're open to the ideas, the growth, the lessons learned, my goodness, just put one foot in front of the other, and there will be opportunity windows that often show up at the very same time. And I'm actually kind of in that right now. And I can't share. But what I'm going to say is, there's been an opportunity presented, and it's crazy because my heart is full. I've never been more real about what this journey would look like. But anyways, it's just funny how it works. It's, you have opportunities at the heart of the times when you don't want the opportunities as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but
Well, you said you're not going to share.
No, I'm not.
And I'm not either, so don't ask me. I think the timing, what you're referring to, I think the timing of it is interesting.
So interesting.
I look at it, I agree with you, and I look at it just slightly different. I've always felt like God will give you more than you can handle without his help, right? But with his help, you can get through it. That's kind of how I've always looked at those things. People say, well, how do you balance, opportunity and the timing and all of that? And I remember a joke this is an old joke, and this guy kept praying and asking God, let me win the lottery. And he prayed the same prayer for like 7 days. And finally God spoke to him and said, go buy a ticket, right? You have to be ready and open for the opportunities. Sometimes we're just like, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? And it's like, you're looking for this here when you've got a great opportunity over here that you can't see because you're so tunnel vision focused on the wrong things. And so I really think being open-minded, not being married to any one path, right? Sure. To the point that you can't see anything else. I think that's an important part of the equation.
Yes. So when I think about my mentality on a busy, busy day, right? You have, I'm working and focusing on what I can work to make stronger, to make better in my business. Just make the bones of what I'm doing stronger and what I have going on right now. And when an opportunity comes that may be added value, or even though you don't want to admit it, maybe a distraction or something from the outskirts, I have to ask myself, kind of what you were saying, but you have to say, does this align with is this going to hurt or benefit my business and the people right now? Is this going to work towards my futuristic goals? Is this aligned with my values? But being open to those opportunities, though, is so incredible. I guess as a business owner, what I'm trying to say is, you literally every day, in my mind, you put one foot in front of the other. You think you're going to know what tomorrow holds. It doesn't, because I say that with the best heart too, because you put one foot in front of the other and things can change on the dime for the good and the bad. But to be open to these lessons, and White Peony's not going anywhere. That's not any part of the secret. But there's just things on the outside that I'm working on so hard right now to bring more value to this entire community and to what serves my family and I. It's like Kent button in the back of my head.
Mhm.
Does this bring value to your life? Is this realistic? You have to remind yourself, because I am passionate. I do have emotions that are tied to what I do. I'm very passionate, but I do not want to make the wrong decision.
And I'm glad you said that, because you can get analysis paralysis too, right? You
100%.
can get so drilled into something that you can't
The truth.
move forward. And I'm that voice of reason that you are
The button.
referring to, right? The Kent button. But I'll say this. This is true of you. This is true of a lot of clients I work with. I have to at sometimes switch my hat out. And,
Yeah.
sometimes I need to be the cheerleader,
Yes.
right? I'm always amazed by people that I think are, they have it all together. They're confident, and you get to know them more closely, and you see them be vulnerable, and you realize that they don't have confidence, at least not all the time. And
Yep.
so sometimes I need to be the one to fill them with that confidence. In a few cases, I need to be the one to take some of their confidence away because they're a little too confident. When you're going to make a big decision, you have to weigh it against, does this bring me closer
Sure.
to the goal, or does it take me further away? And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Sometimes you can't tell, right? You
Yeah.
can run it through all the filters,
Yes.
and you just don't have a clear sense. There are times where you do have to take risks. That's a part of being a business owner. One of my good friends, they've had a successful business for many, many years. And I don't know, probably 20 years ago, they started this other business, not because they didn't work hard, but it failed.
Sure.
It failed miserably, and it cost them. And I remember years later, the dust has settled and everything is fine again. And I'm like, I suppose in hindsight, you wish you would have never done that. And he's like, no, I don't think that way. And I'm like, really?
Hmm.
And he's like, I would have always wondered. I would have always wondered
Sure.
if I could do it. And now I know. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a really good attitude. You do have to take risks sometimes. Let's make them as calculated as possible,
Mhm.
right? But sometimes you do got to just, jump and take that chance.
In the beginning of leaving my amazing career, and if you would have told me we needed to make a calculated decision, I would have been like, well, here I go,
Right.
without your permission,
Yeah.
So it was something that I definitely had to do and then figure out kind of on my own a little bit. I don't know that I would have done anything different. Like if I played it all over again, I had to figure it out kind of because of who I am, because of my stubborn, because of my overachieving mind. I think I had to figure out a few things and learn a couple lessons on my own before really getting help in the whole process. Now I'm at a place, and I speak to those who are, if you're, going through a challenging season because of the economy in the world right now. If you're anything like where I'm at, my brain is constantly like, what kind of move could we make to better serve people? What kind of move could I do for my team that makes them more connected? And what could I do for my family that puts us in a better position than yesterday? Because, just all the movement going on is constantly going in my head. I guess the message here is there's a time and a place for movement. There's a time and a place where you need to hone in on like what you can control, the bones of your business, the bones of your team, the bones of your people. And then there's a time and a place that you need to sit down and evaluate. I think with all of the new and all of the AI and all of the businesses being created right now and all the things that are shifting in the world, yeah, there's like these bright lights that are flashing at you all over the place. And you're like, ooh, should I do that? Should I do this? Should I try that? What should I do? And it's like, okay, take a breath first and foremost and work on you internally, and then look for help, and then kind of make one foot in front of the other to make a decision. It doesn't have to be fast. Sometimes I say I want to get to this place, but I don't have the answers, and I'm okay if it doesn't happen right now. I know I want this as a goal for my future, but I'm literally just going to put one foot in front of the other right now. I don't have the answers. I do not know what this is going to turn out to be. I'm just working on it right now, and that is that.
One of my favorite movies is the movie Miracle. I'm not really a hockey guy, but I love that movie. I remember that time. I was a kid when that happened. And, right before they're getting ready to play the Russians, Herb Brooks makes this statement that, great moments are born from great opportunity. And I think as entrepreneurs, right, and as business owners, we face those great opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are we going to do when they come? Well, the first thing is be ready. The second thing is be discerning, because not all great opportunities are as great as they're dressed up to be. And sometimes we learn that the hard way.
Yes.
But if you're going to go into this and think, well, I'm going to build this business, it's going to be successful, and I'm just going to, hit the autopilot, it does not work that way. You and I both know that.
Yeah.
That's not how it goes.
For sure. When you said be ready, I can't help but think about like our conversations and just the steps I've taken as a business owner. Looking back in hindsight, the steps I took as a leader in growth. But at the end of the day, to be ready, and you can tell me your definition, but to me, that's like working on you internally.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to?
Yeah. I mean, something that we talked about with our players when coaching basketball,
Yep.
the summertime was when kids had the opportunity to work on themselves, getting better with their skills and whatnot. During the season, we're focused on getting better as a team.
Yes.
Right.
There you go.
And, I think that's true of us as business owners, right? We need to invest in ourselves, in growing. And I love it when I'm talking to a prospective client and they say, look, I'm really good at areas of my business. There's others that I don't understand. I want somebody to tell me what to do.
Mm.
That's a great situation to be in, because they're going to, number one, do what you suggest that they do.
Yes.
And they're going to be accountable to the process.
Yeah.
If you're trying to work with somebody and they just say, well, I've got it figured out, I don't need help, well, then why are we even having this conversation? It's constantly, what can I do? And I remember a conversation that you and I had with one of the external team members where you said, look, I want, in this particular area of business, I want you to treat me like I'm a beginner.
Yes.
I think that that's just refreshing. I think that that's the way we all need to be, is, hey, there's areas of this thing that I don't have figured out.
Yes.
And I want somebody that does to come alongside me.
I will not forget that starting out as a business owner, I was definitely pushed in different directions. And I think I was just finally done with that. And I just said, please act as though I know nothing.
Yeah.
Pretend that I've never had a
Right.
business before, and let's start fresh. Because I want to learn the steps. I want to learn internally. I want to be just stronger in that regard. And to the one area that maybe brought me the most anxiety, or that I had the most questions, and I didn't understand some of the language. So
Yeah. I want to say this. So when I started out, I was a solopreneur, and my wife would say, hey, I'm married to the president of the company. And I'm like, yep. And I'm also the custodian and every other hat, right? I think a lot of times we think, because we came up that way,
sure.
well, I figured it all out because I did all the different functions of the business. And that is true, but it doesn't mean that we did them all the right way.
Yeah.
Right? We muddled through some areas we were really strong in, others we weren't, but we figured out we made it through. But it doesn't mean that what we did was the best or the most efficient or most profitable way. So I think for us, when we get to a place, it was liberating for me when I was finally able to start being a little more selective about the opportunities that I said yes to. Because when you're first starting out, right, you want to make money, you're trying to, I can do this or I can do that, even if it's not the core of what you do. And it's refreshing when you get to that place where you can start saying, hey, you know what? I don't think that that's the right opportunity for me, or I don't think I'm the right, fit for you. That's a growth mechanism, investing in yourself to go back when you've kind of gotten to that place. Go back now and let's look at how I've done things in the past, and did I do them the right way? And if not, let's correct it.
One thing I'm going to take away here through your leadership development, through owning a business, the decision of starting a business, to your journey through it all, if you're navigating change or growth, I cannot stress enough to reach out to someone for help or advice. And maybe advice in the beginning, just for the sake of figuring out who you can pair with very well or partner with. And so, Kent, I'm going to give you the reins to just, plug your advisory work, because it is essential. It has been essential with the last couple years of my business. And I will never, ever go without for my future, because it is so important to have the bones and the structure to back your decision making and your pivoting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to basketball again. Get to the highest level of basketball, right? The NBA or the WNBA. They're professionals. Do they just go play, or do they have a coach? Not all of them listen to their coach, but I mean, they all have a coach. And so from a business perspective, I can't stress enough how important it is to have a team of people supporting you and guiding you. My company, 4G Advisory Group, we are a collection of strategic advisors. Interestingly enough, each of us has our own different areas of expertise, and we can support one another and we can support the clients that we work with as a group, because between us, kind of want to say we've seen and done just about everything, but it's so critical. We'll be the first ones to say, if we don't think we're a good fit for you, or you're not a good fit for us, we'll be the first ones to tell you that.
Which I think is so important.
It is, because we are not for every business out there, and that's okay.
Yes.
That's okay. But whether it's my team or there's other great advisors out there, I can't stress enough, and you've reiterated this, just how critical it is. I mean, I have mentors, right? I've been doing this a long time, but I have mentors that I leaned on and learned from, and I still have people that I can go to and bounce things off of. I think it's such a critical area of growth as a business owner.
I couldn't agree with you more. So, Kent, you work with leaders in the exact space, helping them slow down, think clearly, and move forward with intention. For anyone listening who this is resonating with, can you share a little bit about your advisory work, like who that typical partner would be, though? You gave an example in the very beginning. I would say just a little snippet of why they would reach out to you, or what would trigger that.
Take your example, right?
Yes.
I grew so fast, and now I'm just like, if I don't start to put some of these pieces together and figure it out, I can't grow any further. That's a very common entry point for us when a business is doing well, but is at a place where they're not built to scale. My team and I are very system focused. I built a platform with systems and tools, and they work, right? And implementing the right things at the right time, building up the core of your team, investing in your team. And just think about whether it's Autumn or Em or Steph, the growth that they've had. Well, it didn't just happen, right? You have invested in that. I've spent time with your team. I think that is a really critical piece, is you can focus on the numbers and growing the revenue and all that. And some people think the answer to every problem is, well, we just need more revenue. If you don't figure out how to be profitable on the revenue that you have, you're just growing your problem. You've got more revenue, but now you've got more expense. I'm a big believer in roles and responsibilities and ownership. Action within a business needs to have an owner of that role, and it needs to be documented. It needs to be clear. You need to eliminate overlap as much as possible, and everything should be documented. I'm a big believer in having standard operating procedures, because, hey, if that guy does finally listen to God and he buys a lottery ticket and he doesn't come to work tomorrow, who's going to do his job and how are they going to do it? I think that's critical.
I love that. Before we wrap up, I wanted to share something that feels really special and honestly really aligned with everything we've talked about today. Over the last season, especially while navigating growth, a lot of pressure, and a lot of behind-the-scenes refinement, I've been quietly working on the next evolution of the Leveling Up with Lindsay podcast. And with your guidance, Kent, and perspective along the way, I realized something so important. This podcast has never been about airtime or ads. It's been about people, about leadership, alignment, and building something so meaningful along the way. So today I'm really, really excited and very nervous to officially share that we're opening up the new Leveling Up with Lindsay podcast sponsorship and intentionally calling them partnerships. Because to me, this podcast is not a platform to sell at all. It's a space to build trust, share real stories, and elevate leaders and brands who truly, truly align with this community. These partnerships are designed for businesses, organizations, and leaders who care deeply about how they show up, who they believe in, their leadership development, meaningful connection, and doing things with intention. Partnerships may look like thoughtful episode integrations, of course, shared storytelling, collaborative conversations, and long-term alignment, not just a one-time mention, friends. This is something I've taken so much time with. I've built slowly and designed very intentionally, because how we grow this podcast matters. If this resonates with you, whether as a listener, a leader, or a brand, I cannot wait to share more about what these partnerships will look like in the weeks ahead. Kent, I am incredibly grateful for your perspective, your steadiness, and the role you've played, not just in this conversation, but in my own leadership journey. What I hope listeners take away from this today: You do not have to rush clarity. You don't have to chase every single opportunity, and you don't have to lead alone. Strong leadership is intentional, it's grounded, and it's built with the right people at the right time. If you're standing at a crossroads right now, trust that slowing down, asking better questions, and choosing alignment over urgency will always lead you forward. Thank you for being here, and thank you for continuing to level up with me. Thank you for listening. If you found this information helpful, please share it with a friend. If you're looking for more information on the topics we covered, please head to the show notes below. And if you wouldn't mind leaving a 5-star rating and review, this would help this mission and our journey to get started. Let's make today and every day an opportunity to level up. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep striving, and keep making a difference.